Hey guys, welcome to our newest show here at Nerdy Facts, Pitcher's Mound. Now don't get too bummed, it has nothing to do with baseball. In this show, we'll be pitching movies that we want to see get made, or movies that will inevitably get made and we just want to see done right. This episode is the latter. My name is Chris, and today I want to pitch my idea for a Back to the Future sequel/reboot. Now I know that Robert Zemeckis has been pretty adamant that there will not be another Back to the Future movie as long as he has anything to say about it. But this is Hollywood we're talking about. People like money, and it wouldn't surprise me to hear that we're getting another Back to the Future reboot in the next 10 years. Now, on the surface, it sounds like a terrible idea. Back to the Future 1 and 2 are both in my top favorite movies of all time, and I'd hate to see their legacies tarnished. But after spending way too much time thinking about it, I came up with an idea that I wouldn't hate to see on screen. So without further ado, let's try not to ruin this franchise. Our movie begins in present day. 2015's come and passed, and we're still missing a lot of technology that we were supposed to have by now. Why? Perhaps because the man who notoriously invented impossible machinery and traveled through time to gain worldly knowledge was never able to invent it. Think about it. Who else could make workable flying cars, hoverboards, and weather control? A mad scientist or Doc Brown? So why didn't he? Clearly something happened to Doc that prevented him from ushering in a new age of technology. Perhaps he was killed by someone he upset during his time-traveling adventures. When? Why, 1985, of course, just before he was able to send Marty back in time in the first place. Remember, in the Back to the Future canon, time is pretty fluid. One change can have massive repercussions. If someone in the future went back to 1985 to kill Doc, they would destroy the timeline we've seen, and likely themselves in the process. After all, if they kill the Doc, time travel is never invented, preventing the killer from existing in 1985. But who could our mysterious antagonist be? The way I see it, there are three possibilities. First, a Biff Tannen family member, obviously, pissed about everything that Doc and Marty have done to his family. This would certainly fit in tonally with the franchise and give a fun new take on a Biff-like character. Second, the Libyans from the first movie. Probably the weakest option, but they certainly have motive. Or third, a new fellow time traveler from a date in the future beyond what we've seen in the films. For consistency's sake, I put it about 30 years in the future. This is my favorite option. Up till now, the duo has yet to meet a match for them, and another time traveler would certainly be an interesting mix. It would also give us a villain who can follow our heroes through any other film that this might kick off, instead of just resetting Biff every time, injecting something new into the franchise that is notorious for its repetition.
Nothing but a little chicken.
What's wrong, dude? You yellow!
So there's the setup. Now for the actual film. The plot is simple. Go back to 1985 and save the Doc. But wait, how would anyone know to save the Doc if they don't know that he invented time travel? Well, obviously, Marty would have known the Doc pretty well already. For him to just turn up dead, probably blamed on the Libyans who were trying to kill him anyway, there's no doubt that Marty would be unsettled by the circumstances. Perhaps in his investigations, he finds the plutonium tucked under his bed, as well as a strange DeLorean hidden in a garage that Doc never spoke of. Beyond that, Marty doesn't know what to think. The trail stops there. He imagines that the Doc was into some heavy stuff with the plutonium, so he locks it in the garage and takes over the payments for the storage, hoping one day to figure out what it all means. Cue to modern day Hill Valley. Marty is a curmudgeonly conspiracy theorist. He has no children, and Jennifer left him because he became obsessive in his investigations into Doc's death. Years of searching through the Doc's notes have made him put together several of the Doc's plans. He has sketches of future technology, flying cars, self-drying clothes, automatic laces, and dead center on his board of unfinished inventions, a time machine. Marty recognizes the flux capacitor sketches as the same as the interior of the car in the garage, but he could never figure out how it worked. People thought he was crazy, and he may have been, but he knew the Doc had built a time machine, and he was gonna figure out how to use it and save his old friend. Meanwhile, the kids in the neighborhood know about the crazy guy who tinkers late at night in his garage. There's strange noises and bright flashing lights coming from there all throughout the night, and they want to know what's inside. One of the teens is pressured by the others to sneak in when the old man isn't around. Marty leaves the garage that night wearing some kind of biohazard suit, which only fuels the teen's curiosity. Marty had, of course, been experimenting with the car, and he'd figured out that plutonium was needed in the special tank. However, no matter what he tried in the garage, every gear and button, revving the gas, nothing worked. He leaves, only briefly, but the teen takes his chance. He sneaks into the open garage, not sure of what he's going to find. It's an old car. Not what he'd been hoping for, but it is weird looking. He gets inside to check the crazy glowing lights and gizmos. It's unlike anything he's ever seen. But just as he notices the time dials, the garage door flips open. Marty's back. No time to think. The old man is crazy and there's no telling what he'll do if he catches him. The teen starts the car and guns it out of the garage. Marty chases him on foot, but notices something down the street. An identical car materializes from thin air and continues driving. Impossible! Unless the car he's chasing suddenly disappears after reaching a certain speed. It had worked! The teen had traveled a few seconds into the past. Now, the teen no longer wants any part of this. He never intended to steal the car, only to use it to escape and then ditch it. But when Marty learns that he was able to get the time machine to work, he tracks the kid down and ropes him into the mission. In helping Marty figure out how the time machine works, they develop a relationship similar to the one Marty had with Doc. As for who the teen is, I'd want to keep it somewhat in the realm of current Back to the Future characters, so I thought of a character named Gerald Wilson, the younger brother of Goldie Wilson III. Goldie Wilson III, you may remember, is the grandson of Mayor Goldie Wilson, and in future 2015, he was converting old cars into hover cars, but he's too old to be the teen himself. Ideally in the movie, Gerald would look at the designs for the hover cars and the designs for the time machine and comment on how it was designed so that it could easily be converted into the hover design. And later in the film, or in the sequel, he could get his brother, who still works on cars, to help him convert it. Of course, afterward, his brother would have the business plan to convert other cars into hover cars, having invented the method himself. It wouldn't be the first time someone took credit for somebody else's accomplishments in these films. Anyway, Marty and Gerald would go back to 1985 to save the Doc, and face off against this antagonistic time traveler from the future who believes that Doc's manipulation of time to be the cause of much strife where he comes from. This could be the start of a new trilogy that would emulate the first. Now, normally I'm not a huge fan of copying other films in a franchise. Force Awakens was good, but did we really need another Death Star? However, for these films, I feel like repetition is a key ingredient to the structure. The original three films have a tightly looped plot that all surrounds the Tannen-McFly rivalry, as well as the creation and destruction of the clock tower. So I want certain key events in these films to follow the structure of the originals. For instance, in the sequel, they would need to go 30 years to the future, most likely to confront this time-traveling villain who has plagued them in the previous film. In the final sequel, they would go much further back in time, probably to the 1920s, where they would encounter Irving Kid Tannen, who is Mad Dog's grandson and Biff's father, and a mobster according to the non-canon video game. He wouldn't be the villain of the movie, but it'd be a fun character to include. Now, I would want to avoid going back to 1955 at any point. It's very much covered in the originals, and going back would take the repetition a little too far in my opinion. The overarching goal of this new trilogy would be to fix whatever terrible future the villain thinks the Doc has caused, and by the end of the first film, the villain succeeds, not in killing the Doc, but in sending him back to 1885, where he lives out the rest of his life happily with Clara. This time without the future knowledge that he needs to build a ridiculous time train. This way we can move forward in the series with just Marty and Gerald, but Doc still gets a happy ending. And that's it! My overlong, convoluted pitch for Back to the Future 4, and possibly 5 and 6. Hopefully you don't think I ruined your childhood or whatnot, and if you have any additions or alternate ideas besides just not making the film, which yeah, obviously, then let us know. I would genuinely love to read them.